Welcome back. We are getting ready to start milling our slot and our broach plug here on the Kearney Trecker mill. We've got everything set up and we are ready to touch off and get our depth set. So there's our plug there. We've already got our offset ready on here. By the way, I'm using my stubby 1¼ arbor, and we are going to be using a 9/16 stagger tooth cutter right there. All right, and I've already got it centered up as I just mentioned there, and I didn't get video of that, but what I do is there's a couple ways that you can do this, and the way that I did it this time is that I turned it on and I used the paper trick right here up against the fixed jaw. Just stuck this piece of paper, and this is kind of thick paper right here, and once it starts pulling it out of my finger, I go ahead and I zero it out up on the DRO and then turn the machine off. And I could look down here and just see ever so slight of a gap between the cutter, this right side of the cutter, and the vice jaw. So then I just manually move it over until it just touches that jaw without the machine on, without it rotating. I just touch it, and up here it showed that I moved 4 thousandths. So I went ahead and zeroed it out there on y-axis and then just did my math, and we've got it offset half the distance of the plug, subtracted, or should I say half the width of the cutter, which is 9/16, subtracted from half the diameter of the plug, and that brought me to 0.936. So that should be dead center of the plug right there. All right, so we're going to be machining this to fit this broach plug right here. This is a 7/16. This is what we want to use, but it is a size D. So any of the size D broach cutters like this will fit this slot. I have them, I believe, from 3/8 up to 1/2 inch, I believe, is that size. So I've got my measurements here. What we're going to be doing, the depth of our slot is going to be this width right here at the bottom of the broach plug. So I've already got this measured, and I've got it written down, and this is the width that we're going to be shooting for on the depth. I mean the depth of the slot there, okay, because you want these to go in, slide in, and start on this first tooth. All right, and then our width is actually measuring 0.566, so I added 2 thousandths to that for our target width, and we're going to finish it out at 0.568. all right, so that really only puts us 6 thousandths narrower than our finished target size. So that's why I'm going with a 9/16. So once we get our slot cut through there, I'll just offset it 3 thousandths each side and cut down each side of it so that our cutter is going to fit in there. All right, and we're going to be running, I've got it set at 65. We'll either run 65 or 78. I'm shooting for around 80 feet per minute on the speed of the cutter. And then whenever we go to engage this plug, we're going to start off with a light feed because it bangs pretty hard on the edge of a workpiece right there. And then once you get the tooth starting to engage fully, then I'll bump it up, and we'll probably run it, I don't know, maybe 5 inches a minute. The book is calling for, under normal cutting operations, around 10 inches a minute, but I never like to push it that hard. There's just no reason for me to push it that hard. I'm not in a production environment here. We're just cutting one slot. I think that's about it. Let's go ahead and fire it up and start getting it ready. I am going to use my Noga Mini Cool. We'll slide this over here and I'll get centered up on the cutter, and we'll flood it pretty good so it's got a lot of mist coolant down there, and this always does a really good job. All right, let's get rolling on it. We're going to get our flat established there with the cutter. Looks like we're about there. Just come in here and touch it with my fingernail. Okay, we've got an edge. We've got an edge on both sides there, and it looks like we're centered up just like we should be. So we'll go ahead and set our depth. All right, we got our depth set there. I just went to 850. That's going to give us approximately 10 to 12 thousandths. That's got to come out of the bottom. And we've got our mist coolant here set up. Do a little test spray. That should work real good. All right, we're ready to start cutting. All right, here we go. That went beautifully, had no problems there. The machine did great, and I was only running 3 inches a minute. So it was putting out a good looking chip, so I didn't worry about bumping it up and trying to increase the speed. I mean, it only took a couple minutes to get across that thing. We'll go ahead and clean this up, and I'm gonna start doing some measuring on it. I'm going to be using my gauge blocks to measure the width of the slot here. This is my do-all set. Nice old school precision gauge block set. I bought these second hand, and they're all in great shape. There is some signs on some of them having a little bit of surface rust that accumulated on them. And one of the things that I do, I take my precision flat stone right here, and whenever I go to use it, in case there's anything on the surface that's keeping them from trying to ring together, I just take my precision stone and just very lightly just rub it, all right, and it cleans the surface off. And I find that doing this actually helps them ring together whenever I pull them out of this set, because I haven't used every gauge block in this, and some of them have, you know, a little bit of surface contamination on them, whether it be dust, oil, burrs, or anything like that. I just take them and just very, very lightly just rub them a little bit on the precision stone there, and it makes them ring together just like they should. So just a little trick there that I thought I would throw in. So anyway, we got a 562 gauge block stack up right there. You can see we got them rung together, and trying them in the slot here, and it actually fits in there. I can tell that it's slightly over that, so I need to go to, let's take the 112 off here. This is a 112 gauge block. I'm going to go to a 113 gauge block right here. All right, you can see I just pulled it out, and maybe you can see it on the GoPro. There's a little spot. It looks like a little spot of rust right there. So I'm going to take and just give it a little rub, and I could feel it as soon as I laid it down, and I can feel it. All right, just give it a little rub to kind of polish it, and do the other side right there, and it just cleans that surface. And then we'll take them and see if it'll ring together. Yep, that one rung together. All right, so let's try that. And that one is a little bit tighter, but still no dice yet, so looks like we're going to be real close on our size. Let's see, without polishing it, let's see if our 114 will ring on there. All right, we got that one rung on. Try it. All right, there we go. That actually fits with just a slight amount of friction there. Let me get you a little closer so you can see. All right, you see we go in there. So I would call that, you know, without trying to measure tenths, we're going to call that at what I say, 564. You can just use your calipers to verify what it is, you know, without squeezing hard on it. See, 554. All right, so we need to take another 2/1000ths out of that. So what I'll do, I'm not going to rely on the digital readout to make that offset. I'm actually going to stick a dial indicator down here on the ways, and move it off 1/1000ths each side right there, and get it cut into our width. And I believe we said we wanted 568. I got to look at my notes, but we'll just take it evenly off both sides. So while we're at our offset, I also want to check the depth there and see if we can adjust the knee height to get to the proper depth. I'm just a bench stone here that I'm using to try to get the burr off the top of the slot without taking too much off there. I like measuring from the top with a depth mic to go down. There's other ways you can calculate the width right here of what you need. I just like using the depth because it's usually not that critical, and I'm always able to make it right on what we need by doing it this way. So just lightly deburring it so that edge is gone without trying to make a flat across there. Usually when you use a file, it'll kind of cut a little bit, and then it's going to give you sort of a false reading there. So that's feeling pretty good. Now we'll get our depth mic. I'll blow this out and we'll get a depth reading in there. All right, just use our depth mic here. So it looks like we're reading 853. It's just under the 853 mark. We'll call it 853, and I'll make adjustments. I believe we're going to go to 862. Yeah, I want 862 on our depth, so I'll go ahead and adjust that as well, and we'll see, you know, if our offset isn't going to change that any whenever we make our next two cuts. All right, we've done our offset on both axes, and I'm going to be doing a climb cut this time. I've got my backlash eliminator set. So let's go ahead and go for it. Taking 2/1000ths off this side here, and then 9/1000ths out of the bottom. All right, that was after our one pass down that side right there. We've got a 566 stack up right here of gauge blocks. So this actually should be the width of the cutter. All right, and it's fitting in there with just a little bit of resistance. So it could be just, actually it's just slightly over that right there, but we got a little bit of resistance right there. All right, now this is our cutter, so it should be the same width as our cutter right here as it sits. So you can tell there's a little bit of resistance in there. See how tight it is? So I'm gonna go ahead and take another cut down this other side, because you don't want it real tight. You need a couple thousandths clearance in there for it to slide. So we'll come back down this side right here, just like I had planned, and give it our 2/1000ths clearance. And then I'm gonna check the depth where it sits right now. Make sure the bottom is cleaned out. So it looks like I have went 2/1000ths over the depth that I was shooting for, which is going to be just fine. We know that the cutter should slide down in there and start cutting properly. So one more pass down this side, 2/1000ths, give our clearance, and we should have this plug ready to go. Ever so slightly on that one side. All right, there's our 568 gauge block stack up. If I can get it started straight in there, there we go. So we got it fitting. It feels like it actually overshot it just a little bit. We may be 1/1000ths over that most likely, but here's our cutter. And our cutter fits in there just like it should. It's got perfect amount of clearance in there to broach that. So we should be on our depth right there. All right, this is done. All we got to do is get rid of the sharp edge, deburr it, and we're going to go start broaching some keyways. Just for reference, since we were shooting for the 568 and I was showing the gauge blocks, I did a 569 stack up, and it's fitting in the slot with a little bit of friction there. So if I had to call this on a size, I'd say that I shot it at 5.569. And it's fitting in there just like it's supposed to. All right, and again, we're not reading in the tenths here, so we just have to round it off to the nearest thousandths there, and I'm going to call that 569. So we've actually got 3/1000ths clearance over our cutter, which is sufficient right there.